When we buy the press, well, you know how they have videos come up for like recently.
Are you trying to record? Oh, just a video. I mean, just the sound. Okay. I just want to make sure and see if I have I see first.
Because you can allow us to skip this.
Just let me know.
I'll be at the front row.
We're just trying to push me like a minute. We're trying to find them.
What's your, yeah, I'm trying to find it.
We have them, but I mean, we have to get rid of these and have them.
Okay.
All rise. Superior Court of Fulton County Land Judicial Service Conference session. John Jacob presiding. Public now come to order. Please be seated.
Are we ready? Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Quentin Washington, and on behalf of Ms. Raymond, we thank you for allowing this emergency hearing. We're here simply to ask for temporary custody of the two children in question, which are noted in the petitioner's emergency motion. Simply because of a couple of things, Your Honor. Number one is that there have been a series of orders because these parties have been litigating these cases for the past couple of years, and in the series of orders, it has been represented to the court that there were sustained specific caregivers for the minor children. That has not been proven to be the case. And what led to these series of issues that happened with the child that had the incident in the pool was simply that there were not licensed caregivers. My client, Ms. Raymond, did not know who the caregivers were at that time, and they did not have the requisite skills to be able to take care of kids of that age. Ms. Raymond would have been able to take care of the kids, and the testimony that we will provide will show that not only is this one incident, but there have been several incidents since the last hearing date which necessitate that Ms. Raymond have more parenting time and that she be granted temporary physical custody of the kids for the upcoming year. You will hear from us the 911 tape. The 911 tape will show that the adult who was in charge did not have the requisite skills to take care of the kids, and but for the AV people being downstairs away from the pool, the child in question would not have been rescued. The second issue is, Your Honor, the other child jumped into the pool. So you have two children in a pool with two adults who are supervising that did not have the requisite skills to be able to, number one, get the kids out of the pool, but then number two, the kids that once they're in the pool, there's no ability to render any type of aid to the kids coming out of the pool. And so that necessitates an emergency. The second thing is that as it was represented that the licensed caregivers for the kids who are licensed in being able to take care of kids and who are licensed in being able to provide CPR and who have knowledge of swimming, because there is an attractive nuisance, a pool being at the residence of Mr. Raymond, those individuals were not present because they don't work for Mr. Raymond. And so what has happened is that since the initial orders which granted custody to Mr. Raymond came down, there have been a new set of circumstances which necessitate this emergency position because, as I stated earlier, those caregivers aren't there. Ms. Raymond does not know who the caregivers are. And the caregivers, as she gets the understanding after it's too late, did not have the requisite skills in place. And this is just a series of judgment calls that we will show have gravely put the kids in danger, separate from anything else that may later come in subsequent hearings. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the Court. My name is John Mayhew. I am co-counsel in this matter along with Ivory Brown. We are here, Your Honor, asking that this emergency motion be dismissed. There are no circumstances present which warrant an emergency change in custody on a final order that's been in place for almost 1 year now. An order issued after a very lengthy trial. The children, since that trial, are not only better off with Mr. Raymond, they are thriving. The only new allegation is this pool accident, which was falsely characterized to this court for the dramatic effect and to obtain an emergency hearing. And the allegations are objectively false, but they would get anyone's attention. The reaction of the ex-wife to the accident was to sue. She sued within 24 hours, Your Honor. And this is an accident that could happen to anyone with parental supervision. This is an effort by Mrs. Raymond to gain publicity and to once more seek a change in custody. It's an opportunity for her. For Mr. Raymond, he wants to be at his son's side in the hospital. He doesn't want to be here today. He wants to make sure his son gets the best medical care. He's even instructed the hospital not to discharge the son until every possible test can be completed with satisfaction.
What is his son's current condition?
He's basically fine, and they expect to discharge him on Sunday. They would have discharged him earlier had Mr. Raymond, who has medical decision-making, had permitted it. But they've said, well, let's do some other tests. He wants to be 100,000% sure. And he's taken every effort to safeguard this pool. It's closed. And Your Honor, there are contempt allegations in this new case that we talked about in chambers. They can proceed with a contempt at the appropriate time once you want to set it down. We're ready to deal with that. But we're asking that this emergency motion be dismissed. First of all, Your Honor, this case is the 2011 child custody case that resulted in a final order dated August 24th of 2012. This case is on appeal to the Court of Appeals. And the same allegations made in that case, other than the pool incident, have been made here. The final order on custody, which I have to give to the court, is an indictment of Ms. Raymond's parental unfitness. And Mr. Raymond was awarded not only custody, but all decision-making for these boys. With today's motion for reconsideration, she now has asked 6 separate times in pleadings, 6 separate sets of pleadings since August 24th of 2012 for this court to change custody. By my count, she's on her 9th lawyer. She's filed a motion for a new trial, an amended motion for new trial, another motion amended for new trial. She's also appealed to the Court of Appeals. Then she files, interestingly enough, Your Honor, a new modification action while the case is in front of the Court of Appeals. And now this so-called emergency. And I would note, Your Honor, in the petition she just filed, she doesn't even make the basic UCCJEA allegations. She doesn't even notify this court, oh, by the way, even though I'm making these same allegations, I've appealed virtually identical allegations to the Court of Appeals. But more disturbing, Your Honor, is this abusive process by using a pool accident of her own child, one which was outside the power and control of this incredibly responsible parent, in order to revisit custody, in order to gain publicity. Rather than rejoice that her son is well and that the accident did not result in tragedy, she sues. This order, Your Honor, which she's attempted to visit so many times, was the product of an 11-day custody trial, not consecutive, but 11 trial days, in which the court heard testimony from the parties, the witnesses, the guardian ad litem, the psychological evaluator, her own nannies, the nannies that worked for her, came to court to testify against her. Her own sister had damning words to say about her parenting. And her friend of some 20 years also had the same kind of attitude toward her. This is the trial transcript, Your Honor, right here. Right here. That's the transcript of the proceedings that resulted in that custody order giving custody to Mr. Raymond. And I have with me, if the court is interested, final order on petition, the redacted final order on the petition, the recommendation of the guardian ad litem, which I have under seal, the recommendation of the psychological evaluator I have under seal, and the order denying the motion for new trial. The order denying one of the 3 motions she filed for new trial, here's what she says in her motion, Your Honor. She says, quote, there was unrefuted evidence admitted regarding Mr. Raymond's past and current inability to care for the party's 2 children. And that, quote, no unrefuted evidence was admitted regarding her current, past, and future ability to be the children's primary caregiver. And here's what the court said in response to that. The court said these statements, the statements she made in her motion for new trial, are contrary to the testimony and exhibits presented. This court noted, quote, witness after witness testified about episodes that revealed Miss Raymond's lack of interest in parenting and many poor decisions she made during the course of her parenting. The order denying the motion for new trial goes further, and it acknowledges that Mr. Raymond has a schedule.
Yeah,
and
with
that
respect, I would object to this lengthy opening argument. I thought we were hearing an emergency about the present issues that are pending before the court, not about the past that's gone on and what may be addressed in the future.
I would like to give you context, Your Honor, so that you know that we're revisiting that which we visited many times previously.
I understand that, but much of what you're saying, I think, will be more appropriate when we get to a more substantive point in the case. Right now, we're just dealing with the emergency.
All right.
And I think you've provided enough background in the case.
All right. I'll move on to the so-called emergency. Of course, there is none. And she filed a petition before this court, Your Honor, that is laced with falsehoods. It's laced with falsehood. And this is the emergency she says we're here for. I'd be glad to tell you, Your Honor, what happened. What happened was that Mr. Raymond, who's an incredibly involved father, had breakfast with his children the morning of the accident. Mr. Raymond had breakfast with the children with his Aunt Rena. His Aunt Rena, Your Honor, has been a significant mother-type figure to these boys since birth. His Aunt Rena, Your Honor, has not only cared for the boys since birth. This was part of the testimony at the trial. She's also cared for the boys while she's been in Miss Raymond's custody and control. And if she's an unfit caregiver for Mr. Raymond, how is it that she's also worked for Mrs. Raymond? But she's a very significant person in the boys' lives, Your Honor. She's a very responsible person. She has a son who's in college, who's 20 years old. She knows CPR. She knows how to swim. And she's a very attentive, wonderful person. So they have breakfast together. After they have breakfast, they go to this place called Mighty Jumps, you know, the things that you blow up and the kids play on. Mr. Raymond goes to his office, which is 5 minutes from his home. Goes to his office, goes to the gym, I take it back. The kids then go to the aquarium with Aunt Rena. After they go to the aquarium, Mr. Raymond takes off work and meets the boys for lunch. They had pizza and they had dinner. And after lunch, Mr. Raymond went back to his office. And the youngest child, Naveed, wanted to go swimming. And Mr. Raymond gave Rena, Aunt Rena, the boys permission to take a short swim prior to their baths with instructions they needed to take a bath and get ready. So he leaves for his office, his studio, which is one exit away from his home. Rena and the boys went back to the house that he rents. And this is the house, Your Honor, he started renting this year because the kids have changed schools. He now has a home place where the church they go to is directly across the street, where the fire station and the police station are both within a block of his home, where the YMCA is right around the corner from his home, and it's relatively close and easy drive to their school. So Aunt Rena goes out to the pool with the boys. And who's present in the home that day, Your Honor, are Aunt Rena, the housekeeper Maria, the housekeeper Rosa, and two gentlemen named Eugene and Ben. And Rena, Your Honor, Aunt Rena, is sitting poolside. She's sitting right next to the pool in the chair. Ben, the kids are playing in the pool. This is Usher, 5, they call him Cinco, and the Beach. She's sitting right there watching them. She sees that they're playing a game, Your Honor, where they're throwing toys in the swimming pool. They're throwing toys in the swimming pool. You dive down and pick up the toy. You come back up. And she sees instantly that when Cinco goes down to the deep end of the pool, that something's not right because he doesn't immediately surface. And what she does is she immediately gets out of her chair and jumps in the pool and tries to bring him out immediately. And the child's arm is stuck, Your Honor, in the drain. And I'll tell you a little bit about the drain in a minute. And she can't pull him out. So she goes running into the house. And Eugene and Ben come out. And believe it or not, the first man that jumped in couldn't bring him out. The second man that jumped in had to go down twice in order to bring him out. And the second man who brought him out actually performed CPR on him. And Rena, although she knows CPR, his job was CPR. She ran to call 911 and to call Mr. Raymond. Now, Your Honor, this particular pool is in a home that Mr. Raymond is renting. They just started renting it mid-June of this year. He has a pool service company. That pool service company was there that morning cleaning the pool and cleaning around this drain. And no one, since the time he started renting the home, has ever informed Mr. Raymond that there's any issue whatsoever in safety with the pool. In fact, Mr. Raymond has had 2 pool parties for young children at that pool since he moved in with no incident whatsoever. Aunt Rena calls 911. They're very prompt. She calls Mr. Raymond, who is back at the home within 5 minutes. The child gets out of the pool, obviously scared, obviously upset, breathing, and they immediately put him in an ambulance with Mr. Raymond and take him to the hospital. I think, Your Honor, that Aunt Rena is a hero. She acted promptly. She immediately saw the issue, and she did the right thing and probably saved his life. And Mr. Raymond has been at his son's side in the hospital, making sure he gets the best care possible, sleeping at the hospital. There's no evidence, Your Honor, in this case that there's any negligence or lack of care by Mr. Raymond, by Aunt Rena, by the 2 housekeepers that were at the pool, or by Ben and Eugene, who really pulled the child out. And there's no issue, Your Honor, of there being improper supervision. Mr. Raymond, even as soon as the incident happened, he calls Mrs. Raymond to tell her what's going on. Immediately informs her. And she comes to the hospital, and her concern seems to be that she wants to sue somebody, from her words. Your Honor, we believe that this is nothing more than a continuation of her bad faith litigation against Mr. Raymond. There is no evidence that he did or did not do anything that caused anyway the accident or caused in any way this child to suffer or was negligent in any respect. Part of the testimony at the trial, Your Honor, was that Mr. Raymond has a wonderful support system here in Atlanta. He's got his Grandma Carter. He's got Aunt Rena. He's got his mother, Janetta Patton, who are constantly in the boys' lives. And part of the testimony at the trial, Your Honor, was that Mrs. Raymond does not have those kind of people in her life. So Mr. Raymond is subjected now to this action in which they filed this motion, Your Honor, and here's what they say. They say, I'm sorry, I brought it up here. They say, Your Honor, that Mr. Raymond, this is paragraph 3, left the children unsupervised at a swimming pool at his home. That's what they say. And the reason they say that, Your Honor, is because they did no investigation to find the facts. Left the child unsupervised. They go further and say, Mr. Raymond was out of town when the accident occurred. Out of town. That's paragraph 4. And then they go on to make other unflattering statements about Mr. Raymond, which is a continuum of the, I understand you know the flavor of where we've been for the last couple years in this case. Your Honor, I believe that at the appropriate time that this court should address these kind of petitions, this kind of use of the court's time. The child is fine. The child is fortunate that he's got a wonderful, responsible, and caring parent. And we ask, Your Honor, at the end of the day today, that this emergency motion be dismissed. I'll point this out as well, Your Honor. The statement that was made in the opening by my learned counsel, opposing counsel, about who should be with the children, that kind of thing, sustaining specific caregivers, that's not part of this case. That's not part of any order that was entered by the court that you are required to have, or at least you're telling me you have the same people with you all the time. Mr. Raymond's going to tell you, and there's other false allegations in here about firing the nannies and the caregivers, and he doesn't have anybody, or he's got new people, etc. Mr. Raymond's going to tell you that he does not have a nanny. Doesn't have a nanny, because he is the one who's primarily responsible for taking care of the children. And when he physically is not with the children, that the children are being cared for by his family members who are incredibly wonderful, loving people. They say that part of this neglect occurred because Mr. Raymond's out of town all the time. Of course, he wasn't out of town here. Mr. Raymond, if called to testify, Your Honor, will tell you that he has canceled over 87 concert and otherwise live appearances since he was awarded custody of these children. Not required by the court. The court's orders specifically said that they contemplate that Mr. Raymond will travel. And nonetheless, on his own accord, he canceled a 60 concert tour, and there's 27 other events, and he says, no, I'm not going to do it. By our count, Your Honor, he's performed maybe 6 times in that range in the last 10 months because he's home, he's caring for those children. And with that, Your Honor, we ask that the petition be dismissed. I will want to mark these exhibits that I just referenced to you, which are the guardian report, the psychological report, the order denying the motion for new trial, etc. And I'll do that while they're putting their case on, if that's acceptable. But I do request, Your Honor, that this be dismissed.
I understand. Call your first witness.
Here, I call Tameka Raymond.
Please step up, ma'am. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm testimony about this court today, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You can see. Stand for the court, please swear.
Tameka Raymond, Tameka Raymond.
first and foremost, can you tell us how your child is doing today?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Raymond, first and foremost, can you tell us how your son is doing today?
My son is alive. He's alive. I say he's doing well. There are several issues that I'm concerned about that that don't seem quite normal. I wouldn't say he's at 70%, but he's well because he's alive.
Okay, is it your understanding that he's able to be released at this time?
No, he's not able to be released. No.
Okay. Now, as far as this emergency that you have filed, can you tell the court what your main concern is for your children's safety?
You know, I'm trying to narrow it down into why we're here today. My son was at a pool that I now see, did not have a gate, does not have any kind of enclosing or any kind of safety fence or anything around it. I find out that he was sucked into a drain that did not have a drain cover. He was with a caregiver, not called a nanny, but acting as a nanny, who does not swim, who clearly did not administer CPR or have CPR training, because my son was rescued by 2 AV workers that were in the basement putting in audio-visual equipment.
So is it fair to say that you have a concern with the supervision and the training of the people who are caring for your children?
I have a concern about so many aspects, but namely, the bottom line is my son basically expired. My son had to be revived and brought back to life. My son basically had died on the scene, from what I was told by the doctor.
Excuse me, I object to her hearsay statement.
Well, it's not hearsay because I'm in the hospital with my son.
When objections made,
Oh.
you need to, and please, don't refer to things other people say. They're not here to testify.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, specifically, let's talk about Aunt Raina. What is your history with Aunt Raina? Have you known her for a while?
Aunt Rena was Usher's father's sister. He had no relationship with Aunt Rena while we were married. He ended up getting a relationship with them after I encouraged him to accept his father's family into his life. He had been estranged from his father's family probably from age 3, or I don't know, 2 or 3, and Aunt Rena came back into the picture during that time.
Okay, so how many years do you think you've known Aunt Raina?
Since 2007, I would say.
Do you have any concerns about her health at this time?
From my understanding,
Your Honor, wait a minute, I would ask that she testify only from first-hand knowledge.
from what I was told from...
Let me rephrase. Have you observed, I'll rephrase the question. Have you personally observed any difficulties Aunt Raina has in caring for the children on a daily basis?
Well, here's the thing. I never knew that Aunt Raina was supposed to be a caregiver at all. She has disabilities. As far as I know, she's been on disability and has not worked because of a vehicular accident that she had. She had like a really bad accident, had a really bad back, and had not been employed for a long time.
Okay. Have you ever observed Aunt Raina carrying the children around?
No.
Has Aunt Raina been in your home with children?
Yes, she has.
Okay. Do you have a pool at your house?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever observed Aunt Raina get into the pool with the children?
I never knew Aunt Raina could swim due to her disability.
But what I'm asking you is at your home, when
No.
you were...
No.
Okay. Can you tell me any other issues that you have specifically with Mr. Raymond's household, that the children have been exposed to since the last hearing?
Unless it relates to an emergency, threatens their immediate health, welfare, and safety, I would object.
Yeah, please limit it to what the current situation is and whatever evidence you have regarding an emergency condition that exists at this time.
As far as the people who were at the home on August 5th, has there been any other incident other than this past tragic accident that leads you to have a concern for the children's safety in their care?
You mean, I'm just trying to understand. You're saying like from August, I'm sorry.
For the people who were, that you have become aware were with Usher the 5th on August 5th, have there been any other recent concerns for their safety?
There's definitely been concerns for their safety. There was a stalker led into the house. That concerns me, and it was with the same caregiver. I mean,
I don't mean to keep interrupting. This was during the trial.
Well,
This
you're
is
asking.
back when, I thought we were talking about it in the meeting.
Ma'am, please restrict, let me do it for you like this. In the last 6 months,
Okay.
if you know of any incidents in the last 6 months that occurred at your former husband's residence and involved the people that were there on the relevant time on August 5th, yes.
Yes, in the past 6 months.
Anything like that in the last 6 months?
Okay. I was told of that's hearsay, but I mean, the problem is, sir, I don't live with him, so I mean, anything I say will because he'll stand up and say it's hearsay, because everything that I know to be true, of course, I couldn't say I didn't see my son almost drown, but I know it happened. You know what I mean? I don't know how to.
Well, did your former husband tell you about anything that happened that causes you some concern?
My former husband didn't even tell me my son almost drowned.
Let me follow up on that with you. What time did you receive a call from Mr. Raymond on August 5th?
It was about 3:30.
Okay, and was that on your cell phone?
Yes.
Does your cell phone reflect that time?
It does.
Are there any other calls on August 5th from Mr. Raymond?
None.
Do you typically communicate with Mr. Raymond by telephone or email?
Email.
Okay. To your knowledge, what time did this accident occur?
About 2:30.
So about an hour went by before you received any information on this incident?
An hour, and when I got the call, I was told my son injured, had a cut on his arm.
And who told you that?
Usher.
And at that time, did you assume it was a serious injury?
I thought my son's arm was probably broken, maybe playing or something, that he had broken his arm, because I knew he wouldn't have called me, you know, if it were just a minor abrasion or a cut, because he didn't call me about the thing that happened on Father's Day. But he called and said that my son had been cut and that he was on his way to Children's Hospital.
And what did you do at that point?
I was in the dentist, and I rushed there to Children's Hospital.
How did you feel when you walked into the emergency room and Usher didn't just have a cut on his arm?
I broke down immediately. There was a group of doctors around my son. My son was hysterical. This was before they had sedated him. He was screaming, and he had a mask on his face, and he was saying, "Mommy," and trying to get to me, and they were kind of restraining him on the table.
So how many hours went by after this near-drowning accident before Mr. Raymond actually told you what happened with your child?
No, I guess it had been an hour, because when I finally got to the hospital maybe at 10 to 4.
No, I don't mean about the cut.
Mm.
When did Mr. Raymond tell you?
He started explaining when I was in emergency, you know, like once I was there and saw the scene, and the police were there, and, you know, it was kind of a chaotic scene, like doctors rushing in, police were there, and I'm just like, this is not a cut. And he's like, okay, there was an accident at the house, and then he started to kind of explain what happened. I asked him where he was. And the thing that's so confusing about it is that the caregivers that I've known him to have, the two that he brought and introduced to me in January, I didn't know they were no longer with him. One of them is a certified swimmer. She's really good. But I didn't know she had quit. I didn't see, I'm not in the know of what's going on with my kids. He doesn't answer the phone. He doesn't answer emails. He doesn't respond. So I don't know where my kids are, who they're with, who's taking care of them. I don't know if it's his mom, his aunt. Yeah, he says he doesn't have a nanny anymore, but he's gotten rid of the nannies because the other nanny is suing him that the court gave him custody because of. So I don't know who my kids are with.
Do you have any idea in the past, we'll say 3 months, who has been watching your children if they're not in your custody?
I don't know. I would assume it's his girlfriend, his mother.
But do you have any personal knowledge?
I
Has
don't know.
Mr. Raymond provided you with any names or phone numbers for people who are providing daily supervision for your children?
I can't even speak to my kids when they're with him. It's very rare that I can even get them on the phone. I'm always told, oh, they're asleep. Oh, they're anywhere besides available.
But Mr. Raymond, listen to my question.
Yes.
Has Mr. Raymond
No.
given you any contact information in case of an emergency?
No.
Do you have any idea who drives your children around? Who drove the children on Monday?
I didn't know where Naveed was when the accident happened. I came into the hospital and asked him, okay, where's Naveed, the other child?
And what was the response?
Oh, he's on his way. He'll be here in a minute. He came 2 hours later.
And did he say where Naveed was?
Well, there's a problem because they've taken Aunt Rena to the police station. Then I said, well, is she at the police station? No, she's not at the police station. It was just a lot of back and forth and confusing information. I don't know where Naveed was for 2 hours.
Okay, so in the midst of all of this frantic, urgency with your child, could you get a clear answer from Mr. Raymond as to where Naveed was?
No.
Did you have any idea where Naveed was?
I did not know where Naveed was, and I did not know who Naveed was with. He said that Aunt Rena was going to be taken down for questioning at the police station, so that's okay. So then who has Naveed?
And what was the answer?
Well, Rena has Naveed. So I'm like, he's at the police station? Well, no, she's not going to the police station. She's on her way here. It was 2 whole hours before she finally arrived. He was, in fact, up in a room by the time. This is down on the emergency floor. I didn't find out where Naveed was until we got upstairs 2 hours later.
Is that a common problem with knowing where your children are?
I don't know where my children are. I don't know who my children are with. I don't know that my children are disenrolled from one school, enrolled into a new school. I don't know the phone number to his house, where I just got the phone number the day we had a status conference. I didn't have a number to his house where the kids, I've never seen the house. I didn't know his girlfriend lived there. I don't know a lot.
Hold on, man.
But this doesn't relate to the topics that we said were of interest.
Stick to the emergency.
Yes,
Okay, Ms. Raymond, let's go back to some of your concerns, the safety in the home. Was there an incident in June that you became aware of?
Is it regarding the gun?
No, in
The-
June,
which,
with your son Usher.
I'm just not sure which, it's been.
Father's Day is in June.
Okay. We went for a Father's Day visit. He came back and he was limping. And I'm like, what's the problem? I took off his shoe and his sock, and his toe had been gashed open. He had cut it or something, I guess, while playing, but I didn't know anything about it. He was dropped off. It was never mentioned. And I said, well, what happened? Well, I was at Grandma's house, and I was playing outside. I didn't have shoes on, and I cut my toe open. But no one ever talked to me about it. I sent Mr. Raymond an email. I said, now, you berated me about a cut that Usher got a couple of years ago. Don't you think this may need stitches? Shouldn't this probably have gotten some medical attention? This is a bad cut. He did not respond. He did not respond. He does not respond.
Did he ever call and tell you
He never
how
told
the
me.
incident happened?
Never told me. He told me what happened in Dr. Druggin's office, finally.
Okay, and did the gash look like it was fairly new, or had it been there for some time?
No, it happened on Father's Day. I mean, Usher had told me, and the other Usher
Little Usher.
verified it. They both verified it.
Okay. Now, again, sticking to the 6-month time frame, was there another incident in the home that would concern the safety and well-being of the children?
The house manager that Usher had was cleaning out his closet, found a loaded gun, left the gun on the counter, and the gun remained there for 3 to 4 days, I was told.
Yeah, she's speaking without first-hand.
I don't live there.
I I understand, but without the actual witness
Okay.
here that knows about these things, we don't know, and quite frankly, you don't even know whether these things happened or not.
And Judge, we are here on an emergency basis, so I would ask for a little bit of leniency as far as
Well-
the hearsay standard.
I guess I'm confused. Let me see. Can I speak to this?
Just okay.
Just move on.
That's fine. What are your concerns with Ms. Reyna's ability to properly control Naveed and Usher?
Naveed and Usher are very rambunctious. They're very active. They're very much like twins, you know, they're 1 year apart. To control, for her to be the caregiver, and I say this because every time they're going on a visit to him, Aunt Rena either picks them up, so I'm assuming this is the nanny, because that is the role that she does. Whether he wants to call it that or not, she's his nanny right now. But I didn't realize that she was the nanny because I was introduced to 2 nannies that I didn't know had quit. They quit in May. And I called the nanny saying, well, where were you during this accident?
And don't go into what they said.
Okay.
Now, as far as Aunt Reina's ability to supervise 2 young, very active boys, do you feel that that presents a present danger to their safety?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
I just felt like there was just incapacity, incapability to handle the situation. When I talk to my kids, every time they go on a visit to their fathers, and this is not hearsay, this is what they've told me, they never want to be there. They're always feeling like she's too strict, too stern, spanks them, yells at them all the time.
Now tell me what-
We're so far afield. I'm objecting.
We're talking about a caregiver.
We're not talking about whether they like being around her, we're talking about whether she's capable of caring for them.
Well,
And let me try to get her back on track.
yeah.
When you drop the boys off for a visit, does it appear that the boys are respectful of Aunt Reina? Do they ever act out?
They cry.
Do they ever do anything else, any kind of temper tantrums, any kind of physical manifestations against Aunt Reina?
They cry profusely and say they don't want to go, and say that they'll stiffen their bodies and won't want to be strapped in their car seats.
Has Aunt Reina gotten physical with either of the boys in front of you?
I've not seen her get physical.
Has she had to forcefully put them in the car?
She's had to call their father and, have him, I guess handle it or diffuse the situation.
Just a moment.
May we approach, Your Honor?